There we go. Anytime.
Okay. The movie I have chosen for this week is Spirited Away, written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki and produced by the Japanese animation studio Studio Ghibli. The movie begins with 10-year-old Chihiro and her mother and father driving to their new home. They take a wrong turn and find a tunnel that leads to an odd spiritual and supernatural world. The concept of traveling to a spirit world is not exactly original, but it is very rarely done as well as this, and this particular instance is very unique. The main challenges for Chihiro to overcome are Yubaba the witch and saving her parents. Yubaba has stolen Chihiro's name, and without it she can't leave the spirit world, and her parents, after eating like pigs at an abandoned food market, have turned into real pigs. Chihiro must find a way to reverse the affliction placed on her parents and herself with the help of a young boy named Haku who knows a lot about the spirit world. There's been a large amount of speculation as far as what the theme or themes of this movie are. One of the most accepted theories is that it's a rite of passage coming-of-age story, but there could very well be several themes or different themes, so keep an open mind and find out what you perceive the theme or themes as. As well, a couple quick notes. The bathhouse in the movie is based off of a real bathhouse from Miyazaki's childhood, and the Spirit City is believed to be inspired by Jiufen, a real town in Taiwan. That's it.
Okay, cool.
And that's us. Begin.
All right. So, as you may have guessed, I really enjoyed that movie since I picked it. It really is fantastically done in every aspect of the movie, from the absolutely astounding visuals to the incredible storyline. I feel the storyline, although it may, in the beginning, in some places, the storyline can get a tad bit confusing. But I personally like it when a movie leaves you wondering, what does that really mean? Even if it then later answers that question within the movie. But I think the storyline is phenomenal. I think it's a very unique movie, and I would probably put it in my top 5 personal favorite movies of all time. I'll let someone else talk.
Alright, I have to be honest. I didn't really like it. I mean, there were some aspects that were well done. The animation was pretty good, though it wasn't exactly the sort of style I like, but I found the storyline, in some parts it was overly simplistic, and in other parts it was needlessly complicated. And also, I hate to be a little sarcastic here, but, you know, I'll try to find another way to phrase it, but
Go ahead.
it spends a lot of time showing her working at this bathhouse and the main character, and most of it doesn't add to the plot, except for the parts with No Face, and even that didn't really add much, and I just don't think it was entirely necessary. So, overall, I found the plot just to be not all that great.
Lachlan?
Well, here's what I think. I think the movie is just, like, amazing, basically. Also, the visuals, like, I mean, it's animated, it's drawn, so it's not like CGI, it's not like a AAA movie nowadays. But anyway, each frame is hand-drawn, it's running at, 24 frames a second, and it's crazy. It's like, 2 hours long? That's a huge amount of frames.
Yeah.
And they're all, like, perfect. They drew them great. So, and then also the story, I think the story is great. I mean, yeah, there may be some confusing parts, but as Andrew said, it answers them later, and it's good to have a movie that's not just tells you everything.
Right.
Can I ask a couple questions? I saw only 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, so it's not fair. But that's why I'm asking in the form of a question here. Is first of all, do you think the way in which the movie is made is as important as the final product? I mean, just because somebody took a long time doing it and did it in tedious fashion, if it could have been done almost identically with the computer some other way. Does it matter?
Gives it heart. It gives it a feeling, even if you can't like tell how long it took. Even if they did it with a computer, it wouldn't.
Well, it's hard just to say unless you had both things to compare one to the other and see where that heart is. I don't.
Well, we've seen Pixar.
Dismiss the idea. Yeah, and that's maybe extreme to the other side. I don't know. Let me ask you this too, because this is again on my 5 minutes that I saw. What I felt was that in terms of the animation, there was incredible detail, but in a way that detracted from me because I didn't know where to look. In a normal film and a lot of animated films, the background will be slightly blurred, as it would be, because you focus in on a particular thing in the front. In this case, it's just amazing detail across the whole thing, and it becomes a little bit tedious for my eyes to find where to look. And I felt the same thing with the dialogue, that this isn't Raymond Chandler kind of film noir zippy dialogue back and forth, or even from what I saw anyway, really witty comedy. The dialogue only served to move the plot forward and was spare and beautifully spare in that way, but that was again tedious for me. That doesn't strike you that way, you guys?
I mean, we're probably both biased because we've seen it multiple times and we can kind of sparse it, kind of unconsciously.
So it's good. It's good to hear the outside opinion of someone who hasn't seen it before.
It's really good to hear what someone else who's only seen it once or not even seen the whole thing thinks of it.
But you don't find a tedium in the visual or a ennui, a slowness in the dialogue.
It's possible that we're just used to this kind of movie because
an acquired taste.
Right, it's an acquired taste.
Right.
Okay, so the graphics, although I personally do not find it that distracting, I think that may be partially personal bias, and I do see where you are coming from and find it a very well thought out and a very true opinion. I mean, it's a very respectable opinion. I'm just personally biased against it. As for the dialogue, and Alan brought this up as well, but one of the things I really enjoy about this movie, one of the things that makes it one of my favorite movies, is it strikes a perfect balance between keeping you drawn in with what's necessary and what I would call character development. One of the biggest flaw with one of what I would consider to be the worst, in the top 5-10 worst movies of all time, The Last Airbender, was every single line of dialogue served the single purpose of narration, of explanation. And I think this movie, while hitting enough of that to keep you focused on the plot, I also like that there is plenty of character development lines where the characters simply show emotion or show how they are as a character growing throughout the movie.
Alan, along those lines, he's emphasizing the notion of plot and character development and so forth. Did you find that to be good? Because I wouldn't know.
Honestly, I think they could have developed the character in a way that advanced the plot. I didn't think that showing scenes that are simply the character interacts with something to show off their personality, I find that to be a flat, obvious way of just throwing out character development. I mean, it's good to develop your characters, but I think that's a very bad way to do it.
So it should all be part and parcel of one thing. I tend to generally think you can do all the elements together. But John, go on ahead. Tell us how we're all wrong.
Well, you're not all wrong. I mean, these guys think it's one of the greatest movies of all time. No face. Yeah, okay, so visually, the word breathtaking is maybe like more appropriate to, you know, it's got so much beautiful detail that I don't know where to look. You know, that's by design, and if you've ever seen other Miyazaki's Howl's Moving Castle, etc., there are fields, and you see, you know, flowers blowing in the wind and sunlight going off of clouds and stuff, and you know, they took so much time to plot all that out, and you know, for example, in Princess Mononoke, Miyazaki personally went over like 80,000 frames, like that he personally worked on.
But
so,
that's the same question.
So,
is the process?
The process
over
is not
final...
important. If you could achieve the same thing, you cannot achieve the same thing with a computer.
Okay, but then to discuss the process seems to be maybe
no.
We should only discuss the final product.
No, because it's just an impressive process. Is one more thing that's impressive about it. It's not, you know, it's not.
There's lots of reasons to like movies.
It's not part and parcel to why it is a great movie, except for that you really couldn't achieve it even with today's. You know, I see 2013 movies. I know what's out there, and you know, they're not even in the league.
Well, I would say equally annoying to having this slowness and this look of, you know, seeing everything is the movies that you get today, which is just crap flashing by and car wrecks and explosions that are just irritating to the eye.
Right.
Equally.
And I like a lot of movies. You know, I like a lot of movies. There's not just one kind of movie that I like or anything. I think one thing is that the plot lines and such are so not traditional Western plot lines. I can see that being a sticking point for some people, but I think it's something I really, really enjoy about it.
Yes.
It's written for a 10-year-old girl to be the heroine of the movie, and all she does is find, you know, strength within herself, the kind of things that any coming-of-age type movie has. But, you know, he had written a teen movie before. He had written a younger movie, My Neighbor Totoro's, for really young kids, and he knew these 10-year-old girls that were friends of the family or whatever, and he's like, no one's writing anything for them, and he looked through their stuff and he submitted a couple of ideas first, and you know, he wasn't getting it, and so then he thought, you know, just make her the hero and Chihiro, and so he did that, and you know, sometimes that's going to seem vapid to an audience member that isn't that, maybe, but I think it has so much, you know, Bathhouse of the Spirits is the setting. What? We don't have that here. You know, yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. A train that only goes one direction, or, you know, the parents that get greedy at the beginning and eat the spirit food without permission and such, and all these things, you know, they wrap up into this, you know, dragons and river spirits and witches and babies and etc., all going, you know, in a million different directions in a 2-hour movie, animated film. Just mind-blowingly impressive to be able to tie all that in.
Yep.
Sorry. I would like to note one thing. You said the main character is a 10-year-old girl. Honestly, I would have found her much more believable as a 4-year-old, even down to the voice. She acts much too young for her age that's stated, and I just I couldn't get over noticing that, and I just thought partially bad casting, but also writing and animation.
Go ahead, Ed.
Sorry. I know we kind of wanted to wrap this up, but I had two quick final things to say. First is, this is another point for me that I believe this movie, as John said, was intended to be made for the audience of 10-year-old girls. I mean, she's the hero. Obviously, it wasn't made solely for that audience, but it has to be
Surely
appealing
not.
to that audience. And this is the kind of thing that really shows how creative they are. With a movie like Life of Brian or The Godfather or any number of other incredible movies that are for adult audiences, you really have a much wider audience range. You don't have to appeal to the little kids who are going to, get bored with too much plot. So the fact that this movie had to appeal to younger audiences and still manages to pull off such a great job, I find that to be a very, very impressive feat. And I forget what else I was going to note, but I will let anyone else have any finishing notes.
I thought of something, but then I forgot.
Well, why don't you give it your grades, and you can think about it in a second and add in your final comments with your grades.
3, 2, 1. I give it 2 brown stars.
Wow. Okay, a 10, as we've said before. John gives it a 10. You're not leaving yourself room for that next great thing.
It's tied with, movies like Life of Brian and The Godfather. For me, it is.
You stole my comment, man.
It is right up there. I copied your comment.
Yeah. I was going to mention, when I mentioned Life of Brian and Godfather as my personal 2 first things that came to mind for 10 movies, this is another thing. I didn't remember it, and overall, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Personally, it wasn't horrible, but there are just too many flaws to overlook, and overall, I'd say I'd have to give it negative, so I had to do less than 5, but like I said, it wasn't that bad, so I gave it 4.5.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I mean, you're clearly out of sync with the rest of the room here, and obviously there is
so.
this. I don't know what the box office on this thing was.
It's the highest grossing film of all time in Japan.
Okay, in Japan, but in this country, because we
Disney
noted
didn't push it because they didn't have the toy.
We noted the cultural thing, though. But right.
It's the number 1 selling anime of all time at Amazon, for example.
Okay, so but again, that's anime. It's not up against.
It's not even up against The Lion King, for example, which probably is undoubtedly higher, or Toy Story.
But nonetheless, other people are really really digging it. So, do you have any second guessing yourself on that?
Not at all. I mean, I guess I could see how a certain audience could like it. It's not for me at all, and I don't like it. There are flaws, and some people.
What would you give us a flaw? Give us a.
They kept getting sidetracked from the plot. Like I said, the girl was not believable, and also they kept including random stuff, which was a little goofy and got like a chuckle out of me at first, but they kept throwing it at us, and it was...
this is, I guess, why they make a whole bunch of different movies and for people. And so, fair enough. Lachlan.
The average rating is 8.5, by the way.
In what?
Of 10. America.
Rotten Tomatoes?
No, Rotten Tomatoes is 97 point approval rating, and I forget, it's 8.5 there, but it's also 8.5 on several other, on all of the first page websites.
Now, the only thing I got to question is I hate statistics.
Yeah.
For this reason, because it's a self-selected audience.
Of
In other
course.
words, if you're a horror movie fan, you don't go and you don't buy this thing. If you're an anime fan, you have.
Right.
It's going to.
Which,
absolutely.
obviously. So.
May I? Yes.
Go
I give
for
it
it.
2 brown stars. I didn't have a gold marker. And I give it a 9.7, which is a 10. I mean, obviously, since I heard Alan, and then I heard you a little bit talking about, like, slight flaws, but I can't give it a 10. I wish I could.
All right, well,
I would, but obviously...
Well, again, I think it's reasonable to give yourself some room to put the next one in there just a tad higher. Or
I mean, I can find flaws in The Godfather, tons of them.
I can
Who can't?
I think, personally,
That's
the one...
thing.
I would rate Life of Brian as a 10, but it's definitely not a perfect movie. There are
No,
definitely
by
flaws
all
in
no
it.
means. It is
but
a hilarious one.
It's
That's not
hilarious
like
and
perfect.
it's absolutely well made, but it's not perfect. But what
I mean,
we're done off on that.
blew it
I know,
out.
but the movie I've seen the most often, I've seen it hundreds of times. Casablanca, an absolute 10 for me.
10.
But
Flawed.
oh my God!
Demand.
Let's talk about the happy scene in Paris with the happy
it's
car.
ridiculous. It destroys the
it's
whole
so
thing.
terrible, but it doesn't matter because the whole rest of it is so good, and it does what it does.
Because the plot is brilliant. The problem I had here was with the plot.
Well,
That's your
it
opinion.
takes the
I,
There's
the
a
thing is,
I
this
can find plot.
there are a lot of
holes.
movies where it's easy to say, sorry, your opinion isn't that good. But with something like this, saying your opinion is wrong is completely arbitrary, as this movie is a very open to interpretation movie and open to
And
opinion.
it's
So
definitely
I will not discredit your
what kind of
opinion at all.
different choices, and I think you backed up what he said. All right, I think we're done, but this
Right.
sets a high bar for Alan because he's picking the next one, right? So now you've got to impress these guys.
Yes, you do.
So there you are.
If you get us to give like 9, 10s, then
Well, you don't have
you
to.
win.
You know, well, it isn't a matter of winning, and it's not one upping each
It's
other's.
like what I was.
It's respecting each
It's-
other's opinions. I think that's-
It's bringing something to share, and I think
Yeah, and to that extent, Andrew, thank you for bringing something that was important to you and sharing.
No problem.
So that's a good deal.
Always a pleasure to view this.